Welcome to the CEO Bros Podcast, After Hours, with Brian Baldoff, co-founded, grew, and sold VHT Studios. Brad Baldoff, CEO and co-founder of By Your Side Autism Therapy Services. Matt Croak, the consummate entertainer, jack of all trades, and serves as our host.
You were like arrested and
stole my baby. I'm wondering, like, is that a dog or is that something?
I think
Dingo is Australian for number 2. Podcast number 2.
Hey, end of another week. Happy Friday.
Check it
we
out.
made
Happy
it to
Friday.
week number 2.
Friday. Happy Friday.
CEO Bros, After Hours.
Nice.
You know, and on week 1, our first week, we talked about the psychology of idea versus business, right? What does it take to actually start that business? Yeah. But now that they're ready to go, someone's got the idea. What's the next decision process, if you will?
Well, so I think there's some major decisions that get made, whether people think through them or not, but they're kind of foundational to the success or failure of your business. So I'd love to, explore some of those so people understand, why these things are important.
So you already know that your idea is you're going to go for it. Now these decisions could destroy your business if you don't get it right.
Yeah, but we're not even talking name, what bank, how you incorporate. We're not talking about any of that stuff. We're talking about more bigger ticket stuff, foundational stuff.
Things they should be thinking about even before the name.
Yeah, before you even get that far, because it's bigger ticket stuff that if you don't set it up correctly in your mind, or if you don't have it worked out, it could cause major problems for you before you even get into all the things you would think are the start of a company.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first one, we'll dive right in. Am I running this business myself? Is this a sole proprietorship? Am I doing everything myself? Am I going to have a partner or partners? Or is this going to be a family business, that the whole family, is going to build? Those are things that I think people just kind of wander into, not understanding that down the road, there's pluses and minuses to
consequences.
That choice. Consequences, yes, consequences is the best word.
Well, what are they not understanding? What are the pitfalls? What are the consequences?
Well,
what should they be thinking of?
I mean, let's tackle those 3. So, sole proprietorship, obviously, the biggest consequence is it's all me. So, if I get sick or if something goes wrong with the business, it's entirely on me. Whereas if it's a family business, yeah, I've got people to cover, the business goes up and down. There's people in the business. That's just one example. Partners a whole different
Well, that's
world.
interesting because we had a software company that we were going to use, and then we realized it was just that person. And we were worried that if that person got sick, we were too big of a company to take that risk, and we passed on them because we're like, it was only that person. And that person was great, but there was no backup. So that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think from where Brian's going with it is though that, okay, am I going it alone? 100% everything falls on me. Whether there's money that's needed, time that's needed, the time investment.
Do I know everything I need to know?
Do I know everything I need to know? Am I the subject matter expert on all things this business? Because if not, I'm probably going to run into some problems. Or do I want to take some partners on in the fray? Is it one partner, multiple partners, and are those partners then going to have are they going to have equal percentage of the business? Is it going to be a 50-50 deal? Is it going to be I own 75%, you own 25%? Like in the case of the podcast, by way of example, like we're talking about where Brian and myself will have an equal ownership in probably the vast majority of the podcast, but Matt will have a percentage of the podcast and Amber will have a percentage of the podcast. She probably doesn't even know that yet, but
wait,
she
what?
Will. Yeah, wait, what? How'd that happen? But and it's a thought process of that's being outlined ahead of time, and that's who are your partners and how does this work? Or is it a family decision? Or are you going solo? So I do think that's an important thing that people kind of roll right past and they forget about it. And it's like, you should know up front what you're going to do with it.
I mean, I don't know how much thought I'd put into it. You guys laugh at me about not having any real estate experience or video experience.
That's like the third time. Amber, can we roll? Are we laughing at him? Can we roll some tape back?
It might be a silent laughter. I feel the laughter. Maybe we don't hear it.
I'll raise my hand when I laugh at you. All right, does that help? I'll give you a social clue.
Yeah, laugh out loud. Don't laugh silently. But, I had no real estate experience, no videography experience when we started VHT Studios. So I wound up partnering. I had a co-founder who had real estate experience and had actually started a couple businesses. He'd actually just sold one. So that one just kind of came naturally to me. I didn't think a lot about it. Like, do I want to have a partner? And if I do, what kind of partner am I looking for? It just kind of happened.
Any concern that it was a friend? Or you felt safer because it was a friend?
I probably felt safer because it was a friend. I think that's what a lot of people do. And it's also probably the reason a lot of businesses fail is, you go the easy route. You go with somebody you know, somebody who likes your idea, somebody who says yes to a lot of things. And then when things go bad, it's like, oh man, I didn't know you weren't going to be here, or you didn't have the stomach for this, or you thought this other way. So there's a lot of potential risks with partnerships. I'm saying partnerships are great.
I'm actually a strong proponent or advocate for partnerships, only because I think you talked at one time, Brian, about when you're a CEO or a founder or something that you don't have many people to talk to. When you have a partner,
right? Yeah, true.
You're going to banter through the things that aren't working out well, the things that are working well. You celebrate the successes with somebody as well. It has its drawbacks and it has its advantages, but I've always, when I've started with an idea that's going to become a business, I start to identify partner or partners early on that I think will help the business grow at the expense of, I know that I'm giving up some of my own equity in the business. I am no longer 100% owner in the business. But sometimes it makes a whole lot of sense to have the right partner or partners around you to help grow your business. And so I think it is a really important consideration decision when starting a business. Do you need one or not? Do you need a partner? Yeah. Yes or no? Do you want a partner? Yes or no? And then obviously what goes with that? Like what
kind of partner do I need? What do I need them to do? And what's the benefit? I mean, just thinking of what you were saying, a big benefit of a partner or partners is they pick you up when you're down. I mean, we talk about this energy, but you can't always have it. You get sick, or you've got to go on vacation, or somebody in your family gets sick. You're a sole proprietor, shut down the business. Your partnership, you pick up for each other. And
well, it's good to have that sounding board too, because you may think you have a fantastic idea with it. So the business already started. You may think you have a great path, and that person gives you that thought of, well, should you consider this? Should we consider this or that? I think it helps. I mean, there's the advantage. We could go into advantages and disadvantages of having a partner,
or picking the right partner,
or picking the right partner. Exactly, right. But
still staying high level. There's two of you. So it
could be more than two. It could be three.
True.
Multiple
right.
Partners.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the decisional multiple partners. The decision of without getting into numbers, percentages, like if there's a disagreement, this is how this is going to work. That's all got to be thought ahead of time, right?
Well, it should be. It rarely ever is. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I say these things are foundational to your business. These are things that people make decisions on without actually thinking them through. You only realize it later that, like, oh, maybe splitting this 3 ways wasn't the best idea because Jim actually doesn't participate very much. Or Jim's got another business that he's involved in. But you get caught up in the energy and the excitement and enthusiasm of starting something new, and you just want to get stuff done. That's what you need to be careful of, is think through just what you were just saying. Am I going to partner? How many partners is it? What do I need in a partner to be successful? Before you even get into the whole, are we in sync? Do we have the same vision? Do we understand where we're going with this business?
Yeah, I looked at it when I started By Your Side, just using that one. The most current that I'm the CEO of By Your Side Autism Therapy Services was, I thought, okay, what partners do I need literally side by side with me to make this business run the way it needs to run? And I had obviously a partner that knew the therapy side, and I had a partner that had the finance side. Now, between the three of us, that made up a certain pool or percentage of the equity of the business. The other equity or other percentage of the business was we got some independent investors to buy in because we know we needed more funding. And that's another part of it. It's how much money do you need? How much capital do you need to start the business? Because if you don't need much capital, then you probably don't need many partners from the financial side, right? If you're trying to tackle a product in which you don't have a lot of the, you're trying to offer a product or service and you don't have this subject matter expertise, you may need to bring a partner in to offer up that side of the subject matter expertise. And so the way I look at it is either the capital you're going to need, the financial investment from the outside, or the subject matter expertise will dictate partner or partners that you need and whether or not you can go it alone. Would you agree with that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think the funding is another foundational decision that we're talking about here. And in a sense, they are a partner, whoever puts in that money. Am I putting in all the money and then I own 100% of the company? Which could be the case. I could still have partners, but own 100% or control 100%. Am I splitting it with a partner? I think I told you guys when we started VHT Studios, I had a co-founder. We each put in the same amount of money to get started. And then we had a discussion. We're going to split the equity, split the ownership of the company. But he suggested that I take 51%, he take 49% because it was my idea. And he felt better if I had the final decision-making authority on it.
And that was done ahead of time. So you did that all ahead of time.
We did do that ahead of time. That was one of the early things we did that helped. That clarified right away who has the final say.
Right. Maybe other pitfalls to come, but at least you've got a majority of the hurdle out of the way of the decision maker.
Of a partnership and who calls
you'll discuss
the shots,
it in detail. You'll if it's a tough decision, you'll discuss it in detail, but ultimately because someone's got 51%, they can make that decision to take you over the finish line in a jump ball type decision, which he obviously agrees to that. And then that's how you get to that, which is great, but that's something you got to figure out up front, and take the example of a restaurant. Somebody might want to open a restaurant, but it's not a chef, and say, okay, well, I'm going to put all the money into opening a restaurant. Let's say it costs, $250,000 open a restaurant, but the chef is going to be, the cook and the main driver to everything, back of house, right? Well, I think that the reality is that that might be a situation where you say, well, I'd love to own a restaurant 100%, but I could see that as an example of somebody saying, hey, I'm going to give X percentage to my partner who's going to be doing a subject matter expertise, something important in the business, and that's worth a certain percentage of the business. And I think that that's something that's got to be decided up front, and you got to know that you can't do that on the fly, because I've seen too many people that have started businesses and they're going about their way. And then they say, well, I'm going to give that person 10% or I'm going to give that person 30%. I'm like, you cannot be doing that on the fly. These are the things that you've got to have laid out up front.
Have you thought about starting a restaurant?
I'd love to start a restaurant. Yeah,
I feel like everybody would like to start a restaurant or a bar.
I had
really? That would seem to be.
I actually had the location down. Letter of intent for a restaurant on the corner in downtown Marengo, and I didn't proceed with it. And it was going to be a nice Italian restaurant. Yes. So it would have been fun to start that. But there's one of those ideas in the business that never came to
just kind of sit there percolating.
And you're not going to shy away from those stories. There are plenty of things that did not happen or failures that nothing wrong with talking about the failures or the decisions that did not work.
I don't even know if that was a failure because he didn't.
No, I meant to do that. Right. I lumped it together.
Business ideas that fizzle out or ideas that get so far along the process and they don't come to fruition. There is ideas that came to business or came to fruition and have not gotten to where they should have, and they can be considered a failure or they just did not yet succeed. We'll talk about all those because I think you learn from every one of them. There's no question.
Just high level. Any takeaways from that restaurant one that you walked away or you went, no, it just didn't work out?
No, I was actually very fortunate. That's we talk about timing of when it's right to get into a business. Yeah. When we were considering going into that restaurant, it was right before COVID hit. And that would have been an absolute disaster had we opened that restaurant when we did. So we actually lucked out. We didn't come to terms on a few things within the partnership group and the funding that had to be finalized. And because that took a lot longer than necessary, COVID wound up creeping on us and stopped that from happening. So luck's involved too, guys. It's one of those things.
I had a friend who sold his restaurants right before COVID. He had like a chain of 22, sold it probably in January of 2020. It's like,
well, I have a friend who bought a chain of 22 right after COVID. And wait a minute. Wait a minute.
It's the same guy?
Wait a minute. I got to get you two together. So funding and partnership, that they're kind of intertwined, but not really. You figure out your structure and you think then chase the funding or figure out the funding after. But you do think the structure is first. If you
I don't
had
know
to.
about first. They're both distinct decisions and thoughts you need to think through, because the first one is more about how are we going to run the business. I think.
But if you're thinking through it, do you also have to say, well, the person I'm bringing on, what kind of capital can they bring, or those are two separate?
Not necessarily. Like you could have a partnership and raise all your money outside the company and just say, hey, look, we'll split it 50-50 on equity, but we're going to get 100% of our money from someone else and give them 20% of the company. So it can be two entirely different decisions. Because Brad will tell you, the funding thing is really about understanding the needs of the business. Like, that's the foundational decision there is, what am I going to need? Can I afford it? If not, what am I willing to give up? What avenues am I going to pursue? Is this going to be loans? Am I going to sell equity? Am I going to go into debt? That kind of stuff.
And you seem more like a planner than Brian. You like to kind of put your people in place first. Brian seems not more like, you have ideas of who you want ahead of time, and you like to kind of organically have it happen as it goes and maybe act on what the situation gives you.
I think that's how things have happened. I don't know that I prefer it that way, but that's fair.
Yeah, I think from my vantage point, I know what my weaknesses are. And I know what...
You saying I don't? Or no?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
You're saying you know what my weaknesses are.
Your weaknesses are my glasses running low. No. I think that going into businesses, I know that certain areas of businesses, I know where I want somebody else to have the focus on, so I can go in the other directions that I know is going to need my attention, right? I need a strong financial partner that's going to be doing the books or taking control of everything financial related, so I can actually go and spend time on the business development end, on driving the actual client engagement or things related to the product or service, because that's at the end of the day what's going to drive the business, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But having the partners in place, I think it's really important, because I don't think any of the businesses that I've started to date or pursued in any case was a business that I went at it solo. I think in every single case, whether the business was successful or didn't come to fruition or failed, was a business that I had gone at it with a partner, because I feel like there's much more advantages to having a partner than there are drawbacks.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, I remember thinking to myself, man, I'm so glad I have a partner. So glad somebody's in this with me, especially during the tough times.
Downside. Yeah, you got somebody to bounce.
But I know a lot of people, especially nowadays, I think, we talked about how easy it is to start a business. You can start it at your house. You can start it online. I think a lot of people are going at it alone. And that's a scarier thing. That's more difficult. I give them credit for that, because you got to deal with all of it. You never get a break.
And you could be going down the wrong way. Not knowing you're going the wrong way, and nobody's telling you. There's no conversation, bantering back and forth, like where you say, "Hey, what do you think about this? I don't really think we should go this way, or I don't think we should consider that." And you wouldn't have. You've got your blinders on because you've got your idea and you're going after it, and you don't even realize that you're going in a downward spiral. And you need somebody to just like, "Hey, we got the right idea. Let's just steer it a little bit this way." That's one advantage of having a partner, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell a funding story when we talk about funding, but there was one where we were really in dire straits, and my partner said, "You got to go do this now." Like, I was the one who was going to be responsible for getting it done, and he just flat out said, "You got to get this done." If he hadn't been there, we probably would have lost the business, because I wouldn't have done it that day. But it was like that sense of urgency of, no, you don't understand. Like, do this now. And I needed that push or that, whatever, extra motivation to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, the drawback is if you're going it alone, you're 100% owner of the company, so you reap all the rewards, right? I mean, 100%. If it's a profitable business, 100% goes your direction, so that's a huge advantage. But a lot of times it's for me, it's the engagement of being able to share in a success with others. Something we built together as partners. I can say in the sense of buyer side that I have a number of different partners, both from passive investor partners to partners that have been directly in the business driving the growth of it. And all together we celebrate as a team. And that's really cool. And, I'm more than happy in that business or any other business to take less so that we grow something that's really cool and something that we could do together as a team. So for me, I've always done something with a partner or partners, and I see considerably more advantages to it.
Having never started a family business, I would have to imagine that's got to be the most difficult. Wouldn't you think?
Well, I think it's the
Family
easiest
business?
to get into.
It's
the hardest to succeed with, and I give people
get into or to start.
Both, because you have people there to do the business, whether it's a restaurant or a service business or something. You have people built in that that you can hopefully trust, that start day one. I think from what I've seen, where family businesses get difficult is when family issues start to creep into the business. This person doesn't like this person. This person got divorced. This person took more money. Like, how family is.
Yeah.
And it makes it tough on employees who aren't part of the family but have to deal with the family. So
family and friends in business are tough, right? Because family run business or family and or friends within the business is tough for some people. I think the biggest driver is, can you drive a separation line between what's business and what's personal? And most people can't. It's a question of, are you comfortable with drawing that line? Because I think with family businesses, I think there's a comfort level that happens.
Yeah.
And once that comfort level that happens, no, you actually have to do that. You have to grab a broom and sweep. We have to sweep the floors of our restaurant, or we have to stock the files of our office we're setting up. I mean, there's stuff that's got to be done, and those conversations can't, and that activity can't, stops because somebody piss somebody else off because they're family members.
I'm older than you,
Or even, I can't imagine even with that many people, even for partnership, everyone being on the same page of what they want this thing to be.
You nailed it. Yeah, that's huge. Do we all have the same vision? Do we all have the same roadmap to get there? That it's infinitely more complicated the more people that are involved, or the closer you are to those people in day-to-day life. I mean, it kind of gets to, I'd say the third foundational item or major decision is, what's your goal with this business? Is this a lifestyle business where you want to make enough money to live a good life, pay the bills, maybe give your kids some inheritance? Or is this an investment that you intend to build value in and sell, and then maybe start another business or in another business? Those are two entirely different types of businesses that dictate a lot of different other decisions. That's why I call this like a foundational decision.
Right.
This is going to drive a lot of other decisions down the road. VHT Studios was never going to be something that I brought my family into or that I handed off to the kids someday. It was purely to sell the business. Hence why I went for outside funding and didn't mind giving up some equity. If I had intended this to be something that my kids took over one day, everything would have been different about the business.
Yeah, I think that's really important. If you're planning on doing something long term as part of the business or as an investment, and I would think even in the standpoint of I'm the current CEO of Buyer Side, and maybe someday down the road it will make sense to exit the business. But it's very important to me that when that day comes, that my clients and my clients and my employees are in the best possible hands if I go that route, and that everybody feels like they were taken care of in the process as best I can. It's not about when do I want to exit? It's because you have to take a lot of things into consideration. You have employees, you have clients, you have investors, and you have to balance all of that. And we've been thrilled growing the business, servicing more clients, creating jobs for people. That's like a really cool thing for me as the company continues to grow. And someday down the future, I'll be right to exit out. But at this point, it's about how many families can we service, how many jobs can we create, and how far can we spread our wings and grow in this, which is really cool.
Sorry for the simplistic question. So you said, if
I want to change my answer. I sound like the ass over here.
We're not laughing at you. Put down the knife. No one's laughing. No one's laughing.
Right.
You said if you knew you were going to keep it, you would not have gotten outside investing. I would almost think that if you knew you were going to sell it, you wouldn't give up percentage because you'd want more. But you said the opposite because you needed that funding to grow to sell.
To grow fast. In our mind, it was about how fast can we increase the value of this company. So that was really the impetus for the outside funding. But otherwise, yeah, you prefer to keep as much equity as you can. And actually growing it fast is one tactic to keep as much equity as possible. For us, we'll talk about it, but we ran into all kinds of world events that impacted our ability to grow the business. I mean, that's another thing I didn't foresee getting into the business. Again, dating myself here, but the dot-com crash in 2000, that was huge. 9/11, the corporate accounting scandals, the real estate crash in 2008. Those are all things that we had to deal with that required us to take outside funding and to not grow as fast. But one benefit was I feel like I insulated my family from that because they were not involved in the business. I mean, everybody worked there at one time or another when they needed something, but they weren't part of the day-to-day. I didn't really bring it home at night. We didn't talk, my wife and I didn't really talk business at the dinner table. I would mostly tell Brad about my complaints, my issues, my problems. That's.
When they needed something, you mean like a stapler or something? Or you said my family worked there when they needed something. They needed a paper.
They
worked for the day, came up with a slip of paper.
When they needed a job.
Money.
Oh, that's one advantage of being the boss is you can tell somebody, hey, I got this kid who needs a summer job, So they were all great.
Is a major decision also how fast you're going to, if it's lifestyle or investing, how fast should that be done or that can change? That will evolve how fast or that should be thought of ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, lifestyle, you hear about some family businesses, been in business for 100 years, 200 years, been handed down from generations. They got into it to be in it forever, which is a different attitude than I'm getting in this to sell it in 5 years for 2X, 3X, 4X, whatever. It's a huge difference, and you can't be wishy-washy when you get into it. Maybe you change somewhere down the road. You started as a lifestyle business, and then you sell. Okay, I got to get out of this, and so you change your strategy to what do I got to do to maximize my return and sell this thing.
It's obvious with if you have outside investors, right? If you have outside investors, they're not expecting you to make a lifestyle.
Right. Yeah,
they want their return on their money at a certain point in time.
Has it anecdotally or that you've done, has it changed? Has anyone started a business? You think it's going to be their lifestyle, or let's say it's investing. Has it ever altered, say, no, we want this, and how's that handled? Or most part, when it's decided at the beginning, it's pretty confident that everyone's on the same page till the end.
Well, I think you start with a plan. Excuse me. I think you start with a plan when you're getting started and you're like, okay, I think in 5 years from now, this is where we'll be. We'll attempt to exit this business, but it never plays out that way. I mean, you look at it and one thing leads to another. COVID strikes, this changes, that changes, your partner leaves or co-founder exits or whatever, and you get dealt with a different hand and you kind of maneuver through it. And, but at the same time, if you're in a business where you've got investors involved, I mean, they still want a return on their investment. Their ROI is where's my investment going? When am I going to see any money out of it? And you're trying to balance that with running the business, growing the business. How do I take care of my investors? So obviously the people that you turn to get those initial capital funding as long as there's good communication back and forth, here's what I'm trying to do, here's what where I'm trying to get to, it will work out. But that does matter. It does matter if you're trying to play long-term business and, hey, I'm going to run this shop until, Timbuktu. You better make sure your investors know that, because your investors are probably going to say, well, how do I get my money out of that then? And so that's something that's got to be a consideration when you're considering long range for your business.
I see a lot of people get stuck in the middle. When we talked about restaurants, that's one I've seen it a million times. We started as a lifestyle business. Wow, it'd be cool to run a restaurant. If we do well, we'll be able to, put the kids through school and take a vacation and, have a nice car. Well, running a restaurant's a brutal business. And so when you're not being able to live the lifestyle you wanted, all of a sudden it becomes a cripe. What do? I can't sell this thing. There's no value in it, but I'm stuck in a lifestyle that's not fun. You wind up either going out of business and starting something else, or you bring in money and all of a sudden you've shifted to a different kind of business. Like, okay, I brought in outside money. Now I'm going to have to sell this thing at some point. They're not going to want me to hand this off to my kids and then wait 50 years to get a return on their investment. So that's where I see it happen a lot, is in restaurants.
Were you thinking of the restaurant be something like not fun, but for the family, or was that going to be an investment for you, the Italian place?
No, it's going to be an investment. I always had the allure of it. I thought it was cool to go that route, but I've family-owned business on my wife's side. They had a restaurant. I know Brian's family on his wife's side, they had a restaurant. I know it's hard work. I mean, from hearing from them, just how much is involved. So I don't know. It was like one of those whims, again, one of those whims where you say, hey, it's a great idea. Love to do it. Yep. But when you start checking through all the boxes, you say, okay, I don't know if this is going to be the right thing for me. And I backed away from it. Luckily, because the timing was off on that one. Another thing I would say, Brian, on just major decision making is just the customer and where you get the customer from. Because, a lot of times it's an idea. We talked, last podcast, and now we talk about an idea becoming a business. And if you can't identify where your customers are coming from.
Yeah, this is a category all in and of itself.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to talk more about this in the next podcast or two.
We can talk about it here, but it's bigger. There's the three we just talked about. A sole proprietor. Where do I get my money? Is this lifestyle or am I selling it? Getting the customer is a category of decision. Not even decision, just thought. Like something you need to know. Any business, no matter how you structure it, family, whatever. This is probably the biggest.
Yeah. Do you know who your customer is? Do you know where you're going to get them? Is that customer going to be consistent? Is this a one-time customer? Is this a reoccurring customer? What's that customer worth to you? What's the cost to go and secure that customer? I mean, there is so much that goes into that discussion. And if you haven't thought that out and just said, well, I got this great idea and people are going to buy this product, you better know where you're going for that, because that is probably the single biggest torpedo to any business.
Wow, it seems like such a simplistic idea, of course, but it also seems like an idea that people are not thinking through.
Well, again, you get enamored with your idea, and I see a lot of people spend way too much time on their product. It's like, hey, the product's great. When are you going to get customers? I mean, business is about money. It's about revenue. It's about generating revenue. At some point, early, you got to get customers in the door. All the stuff you want to do, you're not going to be able to do it until you get people in the door paying. I still remember our very first customer. It was like Ghostbusters when we got the call. It was like, we got one, let's go. Turned out he was 3 hours away from where our office was. We worked on it for like 2 weeks, so that was thrilling. And it's like, okay, now how do we get the second customer and the third? And
yeah, I mean, and that was a driver to buy your side with customers, because customers, we say it's really critical in the decision or consideration for starting a business. It was one of the few businesses that I've ever explored, a business idea that I've ever explored, where I thought, I'm not really worried about the customers in the sense where they're going to come from, because at the time that we were starting By Your Side Autism Therapy Services, it was diagnoses were on the rise. There was a shortage of supply of therapists. And we knew that clients were all over the place. In fact, we had a client when we first started, Matt knows, working up by our side, we had a client 14 years ago that the client was driving all the way from Champaign, Illinois, central part of the state, up to Chicago, Illinois, where one of our, the suburbs of Chicago, where our first center was located, 3 hours one way to get 3-4 hours of therapy to drive 3 hours home on a Friday, every Friday for 2 years. And I mean, that just goes to show you that from a client demand, if the client demand is there and you know where the clients are coming from, and you know that the clients are going to consistently be coming to you, it actually solves for a lot of your consideration of, do I want to proceed with this business or not? Because you're like, I'm not going to run out of clients. In fact, there's a whole host of clients that need help right now. So this is good. We can help them.
But there's a difference between, so you knew there was customers out there. How did you get them? Direct sales, marketing, partnerships, referrals?
Yeah. So
did you know going in how you were actually going to attract them or get them to become aware of?
It's actually a really good point. I don't even think we talked about this before. Actually, our marketing team has been through 3 evolutions of what type of strategy you take to get to the customer. And when we first opened, marketing for an autism therapy business was basically just throw up a couple signs, go online and say, hey, by the way, we're here. And everybody came flocking because there was no providers. And so it was like one of those things where it's like you couldn't miss. People knew where you were at. They needed to get to you. There was a shortage of supply of therapists. And so if you just put your name on a website or you put your name on a sign and said, we're here, they came, which is very unusual for any business, right? Because that's usually the hardest thing.
And the challenge was on that too, is getting the right ones, because although a lot of people flocked, many of them, because it's a medical company, didn't have the right insurance. They didn't have the right diagnosis to get it approved by insurance. So it was good numbers, but it was also.
But the quantity of people who came forward is just from a sheer marketing perspective. There was a lot. You didn't have to go into anywhere near the type of strategies you have to put in place to attract the clients, because the clients were just they needed.
I don't think everybody has that.
No, there was enough people coming that we could work with what we had.
Highly unusual. It's a business model that you very rarely run across where you have an overabundance of clients when we first started, and so that was something we weren't concerned about. But going back to the original point, that's like a needle in a haystack business. Most businesses have to figure out where their customers are coming from. How are you going to reach them? You know, how are you going to get them? How are you going to delineate your product or service from somebody that may be offering something similar? How do you find them? So I completely agree, Brian.
Get them now. It's got to be your first priority. Everything else is important. That's life or death, getting clients. Like, I hate to sound obsessed with restaurants, but I'm always intrigued with restaurants.
We're going to have to get a restaurant owner on this podcast.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to get a couple.
Great to hear that.
I know a couple. Yeah, that would be a good idea. Yeah. How many times have you seen a restaurant open and you can tell they've spent a ton of time on the decor and the menu and stuff like that, and then 6 months later, they're out of business. And you go to yourself, boy, I never saw them advertise. Like, how did anybody even know they were there? They didn't put out any flyers. I appreciate the people who, when they open a business, they're out there the next day putting flyers under people's windshields. They're going to all the businesses in the neighborhood saying, hey, we just opened our business. Here's a 15% discount. They're working the social media. That's the stuff.
Being creative, being innovative.
Yeah. If you get distracted with all the other stuff, you're gonna fail. It's gotta be get customers now.
The passion on this is different than the other three. Have you seen it a lot? I see
it all the time. Yeah.
And you're just like so perplexed. Like, what are you doing?
I'm perplexed, but I understand it, because it gets back to the topic of is this an idea and are you passionate about it? People get over passionate about the idea and forget about the business aspect of it. Like, I gotta actually make money on this. But, I've got this menu that no one else has, and I've got this decor that no one else has, or I've got this product that no one else has. But if no one ever finds out about it, it's not going to happen. So whether it's they don't understand marketing or they don't understand sales. I mean, I see that all the time. People hate to pay salespeople. Salespeople are lazy. Salespeople just golf and they do nothing. It's like, okay, don't have salespeople. Where are you getting your customers from? Where are you getting your revenue from?
Yeah, if you and if you don't have customers, then you don't have revenue. And if you and I don't know if I've said it to you guys yet, but I mean, I strictly subscribe to the rule of revenue is the salve that heals all wounds. Yes. And Sonny Peterman, if you're out there, that's one of a line that we've always bounced off each other was revenue is the salve that heals all wounds. Because if the revenue's coming in from your clients, then you obviously can overlook some other things. Your expenses can be a little bit out of line. You could run a little bit longer on this front or a little bit longer on that front. But if your revenue's coming in, it solves a lot of things for you. And so I think to Brian's point, people put way too much emphasis on the other things within their business, which they should, but they just don't put enough emphasis on the client and the customer. Where are you getting those customers? Where are you getting those clients?
All right, well, go ahead.
Well, this might get back to the first point we made about, do I need a partner or partners? If I'm a subject matter expert, like I'm the best cook in this county, or I'm the best, auto mechanic or whatever, but I don't know sales or marketing, you might want to get a partner to make that business successful, because you're kind of wasting your talent if no one knows about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Brian, because there's a lot of people out there I know that are really talented in certain.
They have skills.
Certain skills. There's they got certain skills or competencies, and they are.
There you go, Matt. Another movie reference.
and they're very talented people. But that's a really good point. That you probably should seek out somebody that can do your business development, marketing, advertising for you, because without sales, without clients, you have no revenue. Without revenue, you are going to struggle, and that's you can take that one to the bank.
All right. Well, so we're going to recap, but the number 4 is really number 1. So we're talking about major decisions that, if not thought out, could destroy a business. But 4 is number 1: clients.
Yeah, I think we got to spend the next episode on that.
Next episode, clients. All right. And then moving down, what kind of business? Solo, partnership, family. That's a major decision.
Major decision, sure. Where the funds are coming from, you putting them in, you get outside funding. And what are you in it for? Yeah. Is it a lifestyle business, or are you in this to make money and start another business and move on? Those 3 things are key. And again, whether you think through them or not, they're going to impact your business. So.
Well, Brian has already teased the next episode, so we'll see you next Friday when we talk about the customer. Deep dive into that topic. Until next time, thanks for joining us.
That's good. Thanks, guys.
Didn't miss. I don't want to break the new glasses.
That's horrible.
I don't want to break the new glasses.